If you or someone you love is in need of radical transformation and change, then you're in the right place. The good news is there is no too far gone. Not if I could come back after 27 years in prison. After being a drug addict, alcoholic, gang member, all that stuff. This video is about the beginning the process of shedding one's skin and where to start, where I started. So many of the things that had to change about me in order for me to break so many cycles. I mean, these were childhood habits and patterns that I had picked up. I was before I was a alcoholic and a drug addict, I was a runaway. This comes from childhood trauma. I was a runaway, chronic runaway. Started running away, we're talking kindergarten age, and and so that's a process I took throughout my life. Trying to get out of the relationships I was in around me, trying to run the people away from me or get away from them. Girlfriends, best friends, friends. It turns into this cycle of gangs and homeboys and all of that drama. And so one of the things that that's one of the things I love about the caterpillar analogy is that before a caterpillar goes into this other process of he molts, he has to shed his skin. It's a process of shedding that skin of he outgrown forms of existence. Runaway was one of them. Addiction and alcoholism, those were other forms that I had outgrown. I was going to keep on. It was going to be the same old story. It's the same old insanity. But running away, or same thing too. My career criminal. I was a career criminal, 6 times in prison. The longest I did was 12 and a half years, and I did 7 years 8 months, and I did 36 months and 18 months and 13 months and et cetera, et cetera. And it's and I did more than half of that time in the hole in ADSEG and in SHU and in MRA, more restricted areas. All of these things, I did all those things because I had the same habits from the street. I took all those same habits into prison. And then all those traumas, they compound and they snowball and all this stuff. So it's like I was, you end up in prison and in a prison and a prison and a prison. And then the same thing too with relationships. Lost all my relationships with my family, more than once, and lost all the relationships with whoever else I tried to have relationships with. And then the same thing at the end of this story with, I got into gangs and all, and we're all trying to kill each other. We're trying to kill our enemies, and at some point, if you've been in a gang, you're trying to kill your homeboys too. So it's all about, it's the same thing, and then the homeboys become comrades and all that stuff. So it's like, it's all that stuff. And all of those skins, that process of molting, I had to shed that skin. I also started using and drinking at the age of 9. So, fast forward that till, I was in my 40s this time. I was in my 40s this time when I got clean and sober. My late 40s. And so all those things, and I had many starts and stops in the meantime from as a teen, going to treatment, getting clean and sober for a little while and going, et cetera, all of those starts and stops, all of those things, all of those were necessary steps and stages of my transformation. 12-step recovery is what finally, shifted my addiction and alcoholism, and so that's what finally it introduced me. It was my first introduction to a God I could believe in and have a relationship with, and it was my ultimate, my induction into a lasting relationship with God, with a real God, a God of my experience, not the God of someone's tradition, but a God of my experience, a God that I know, that I don't, and then I'm not concerned whether or not anybody else knows, that I know the God I needed, to transform me. And so that was major. Those were all major shifts. But the molting was essential. I had to shed first. I had to shed a skin of a career criminal. And then you're still, just like when you're shedding the skin, you're dragging it around with you for a little while. So it's not like one day I went to sleep a criminal, one day I woke up and I wasn't a criminal. That's not how it worked either. I had some crimes that I committed in recovery that I had to look at and had to say, okay, no. And I had the same thing too with violence. I learned about violence, being an abused child. I learned violence. I learned violence defending myself as a small child. I learned that it worked and then I learned, in prison, I learned that, you would want to be the one who's you would rather be a perpetrator of violence than a victim of it. So I became pretty violent. And then you learn that in society, you get locked up for doing all the things that'll keep you alive in prison. You'll be locked up for doing all those things in society. You do those things at work. You beat somebody up who disrespects you at work, and you're going to go to jail. And so it's like those kind of things all had to, I had to shed certain things and learn new habits. I had to learn, and those were difficult. The 12 steps were essential for my lasting sobriety and clean time from drugs and alcohol. That was they're anonymous programs, so I can't state myself as a member of any program, but 12 steps are the solution for me. They were a solution for me. Maybe there are people who are clean and sober without them. It works for me. And it's the same process. Shedding old behaviors, becoming aware of old behaviors, shedding them, seeking new behaviors. One of the things this jumped out at me was that for me, faith is confidence in God. I had confidence in myself and confidence in these skills that I had learned, which was lying, cheating, robbing, stealing, manipulation. That was I had. That was my self-confidence, and I got to a place of self-will run riot, so I had I damaged myself and I damaged others. The 12 steps was a process of getting me to have confidence in God, that I could seek in a higher than me, that I could find a way that's better than my own, a way that's better than what I've been doing. So when we're talking about transformation, that's what we're talking about, something new. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And that's what I had to find. I had to find so that faith in a power greater than myself. So for me, I had to shed some of that self-confidence, because I didn't really have anything to be confident about in myself except for survival. Survival was key. I couldn't make any of these changes in the cemetery. So survival, but outside of that, I didn't need to have a lot of self-confidence. I needed to find God confidence. I needed to find confidence in the God within me. So to that extent, okay. But yeah, but that God would do for me what I couldn't do and what I hadn't done for myself.